Plumber, that's how it started. 2 words. Guy didn't even look at me when he said it. Just walked out of the service elevator, glanced around the mechanical room like he'd taken a wrong turn, spotted me on the floor next to a valve assembly, and decided I was the help. My name is Walter Hale. I'm 54 years old. I've spent 30 years in building systems, mechanical infrastructure, fiber routing, HVAC controls, backup power. I own the infrastructure contracts for a 28-story commercial tower in downtown Chicago. Every chilled water loop, every fiber trunk line, every backup generator token in that building runs through agreements I negotiated, signed, and managed. The building owner handles the leases. I handle everything that makes the leases worth having. Most tenants never see me. I work out of an office on sub-level 2, behind the freight elevator banks and the mechanical rooms. No window, no receptionist. 6 monitors and a thermos. That's the job. The guy standing over me that Tuesday morning didn't know any of that. He was maybe 27, 28 years old, wearing dress pants and one of those fleece vests that cost more than my first truck. He had the kind of posture that comes from never once being told to wait. Hey, plumber, you hear me? I set down the pressure gauge I'd been reading. The monitoring system had flagged a 2.3 psi drop in the chilled water loop overnight, floors 18 through 24. Not a crisis, but the kind of thing you check before it becomes one. I'd been down there since 7 a.m. working through it methodically. I looked up at him. I'm not a plumber, whatever. There's a rattling noise in the AC vents on our floor. Conference room B, we've got a pitch meeting at 10, and it's distracting. I need someone to go up and fix it. You'll want to submit a service ticket through building management, I said. Front desk can get you the portal link. They'll dispatch the right crew. He laughed. Not a friendly laugh. I don't submit tickets. I tell people what needs to get done, and they do it. You're in this building. You've got tools, so go fix the vent. Shouldn't take long. I stood up. I'm not a big man, but 30 years of physical work changes how you carry yourself. I picked up my thermos, took a slow sip, and looked at him straight. I don't work for your company, I said. I'm the independent systems contractor for the building itself, mechanical and infrastructure. The noise in your conference room is a tenant maintenance issue that goes through building management. Not me. Something shifted in his face, not anger yet. More like disbelief, the way someone looks when a vending machine doesn't take their dollar. Do you know who my father is? There it was. I don't. I said, Don Barrett. He's the co-founder of Barrett Group. We lease the entire 22nd floor. My father has been a tenant in this building for 6 years. So when I ask someone on the maintenance staff to go look at a vent, that's not an unreasonable request. I thought about telling him right then that the chilled water loop keeping his server room at operating temperature ran through equipment I owned, that the high-speed fiber his team used for their platform was prioritized through a trunk line under my master agreement, that the backup generator token keeping their systems alive during a power event was issued by me, renewed by me, and could be revoked by me, that I'd spent the last 6 months preparing the renewal contract for all of it, a contract scheduled to be finalized that same week. I didn't say any of that. I understand, I said, but I'm still not the person you need. Have a good meeting, Mr. Barrett. I turned back to the valve assembly. I'm going to call building management right now, he said behind me, and I'm going to tell them there's a contractor down here who refused a reasonable request from a tenant. We'll see how long that contract lasts. I didn't respond. I heard him pull out his phone. I heard him get into the service elevator, and as the doors were closing, I heard him say to someone, "There's some old guy in the basement acting like he runs the place." Yeah, get him out. The doors closed. I finished checking the valve actuator. Torque was good. Pressure was climbing back up. 68.4 psi, almost at spec. I noted it in the log, capped my pen, and picked up my kit. Then I took the freight elevator down to sub-level 2. My office was cool and quiet. I set my thermos on the desk, sat down in front of the monitors. The live dashboard showed floor 22 holding at 71.5 have fiber bandwidth running clean. Generator backup nominal. Everything green. I picked up the phone and called Diane Fowler, the property legal counsel. Diane, the Barrett kid from 22, just came down to the mechanical level and called me a plumber. When I didn't comply, he called building management to have me removed. A pause. He called you a plumber. He did. Okay. I could hear her thinking, what are you planning? I looked at the monitor showing floor 22, 71 Buckrea hat, comfortable. The kind of comfortable you don't notice until it's gone. The infrastructure renewal for that floor was scheduled for Thursday, I said. That meeting is no longer happening. I can't extend services without a signed liability addendum. You know the insurance exposure, Diane. Walter, I'm not providing uncontracted services. That's not punitive. That's just how the paperwork works. Another pause, longer this time. How far does the contract language let you go? Pretty far, I said. I'll be in touch. I hung up. I opened the building infrastructure management system. Root administrator. The cursor sat there blinking. I started with the easy ones, elevator priority first. Barrett Group paid a premium for VIP lift access. When anyone from their floor badged into the lobby, one of the 6 elevators would immediately break from its normal cycle and prioritize their call. Shaved about 4 minutes off the morning commute. Nice perk. I found the service agreement, noted the contract status as pending renewal, provider notification issued, and reverted the setting to standard queue. Now they'd wait in line like the call center on floor 8 and the accounting firm on floor 11. 4 minutes doesn't sound like much. But when you're used to it, losing it feels like the building is working against you. Next was the fiber. The high-speed trunk line serving floor 22 was a split feed. My prioritization code gave Barrett Group's traffic the fast lane. Their data packets moved to the front. Everything else waited. Without that code, their traffic competed equally with every other tenant on the same trunk. The dental practice on floor 8 ran digital X-ray imaging software that pushed enormous files all afternoon. Without prioritization, Barrett Group's video calls would start dropping frames by 2 p.m. By 3, screen shares would look like they were being transmitted from 1998. I removed the code, saved the change, logged it under routine maintenance review. The chilled water loop I left alone for now. That one had consequences I wanted to think through. Their server room ran hot by design, a lot of processing load concentrated in a small space. The supplemental cooling keeping it at safe operating temperature wasn't part of their base lease. It was an addendum. A month-to-month addendum that required annual renewal. Same renewal that was now sitting unsigned on my desk. I made a note in the system and closed the laptop. At 1:50, an email came in from someone named Gloria Reese, Barrett Group HR Director. Subject line, connectivity issues, floor 22, urgent. The body of the email said they were experiencing significant internet slowdowns, and could I please advise on the status of the building's fiber connection at my earliest convenience. No mention of the morning, no context, just a smooth corporate ask, like nothing had happened. I created a new folder in my email, labeled it Barrett Group Unauthorized Service Requests, filed it there, didn't reply. Carl Pruitt came by around 2:15. Carl has been the building operations manager for 11 years. Good man, solid, knows every contractor and vendor in the building by name. He was sweating when he walked in, which with Carl usually means something's gone sideways somewhere. Walter, he stood in the doorway. I'm getting calls from 22. They're saying the internet is slow and they want to know if there's a building-wide issue. There's no building-wide issue, I said. I can show you the traffic logs if you want. Every other floor is running fine, so it's just them. Their service tier is under review, pending renewal. Carl wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. Their facilities coordinator says they never received a renewal notice. Certified mail, I said, went out 94 days ago. I have the delivery confirmation. He stood there for a moment, looking at the monitors, looking at me. Carl's smart enough to know when he's standing at the edge of something he doesn't want to fall into. Okay, he said. I'll tell them to contact their account representative. That's me, I said, and I'm currently reviewing the account. Carl nodded slowly and left. I turned back to the HVAC schematic on screen. The chilled water loop, the server room on floor 22, was currently sitting at 73% HAT. That was with the supplemental cooling running at full priority, a dedicated feed from the chilled water riser that I'd negotiated as part of their original infrastructure package 3 years ago. The building's base HVAC kept general office space at 72 Spurnek fit fine for people, not fine for a dense rack of servers running platform workloads all day. Without the supplemental loop, the room would start climbing within a few hours. The servers had built-in thermal protection. They'd throttle their processing speed to reduce heat output. Slower processors meant slower platform. Slower platform meant missed deadlines, dropped clients, failed demos. I changed the setting from high priority supplemental to base building standard, logged it. The valve actuators on the roof would take about 90 minutes to fully close. I packed up at 5 and drove home. Wednesday, I had a full day at a job site in Evanston, a mid-rise doing a fiber retrofit. I left my building phone in the truck, checked it at 6 p.m. on the way back. 14 missed calls. 3 from Carl, 2 from an unknown number with a 312 area code. The rest from a 212 New York. Corporate main line, probably. I didn't call any of them back. What happened Wednesday afternoon on floor 22, I got the full picture from Carl the following week over lunch. He told it the way a man tells a story he's still processing. Hank Barrett came down to the mechanical level himself around 3 p.m. He'd apparently told his assistant he was going to find the contractor and sort this out directly. He took the service elevator, same as before, walked into the mechanical room. I wasn't there. The room was running normally, pumps humming, cooling towers cycling, everything doing exactly what it was supposed to do. Just no Walter. My workbench was cleared. My thermos was gone. The lights were on their automatic cycle. Hank stood there for a few minutes, according to the security footage Carl described to me later. He looked around. He opened a door to the secondary pump room, looked inside, closed it. He stood with his hands on his hips, looking at the chilled water riser like it might explain something. Then he got back in the elevator. Carl said the security camera caught him pressing the button for floor 22 3 times. Meanwhile, back on that floor, the server room had climbed to 79 Dowser Mary Hath. 2 of the rack units had triggered their first thermal warning. The platform was running at about 60% processing capacity. And 3 guys from the IT team had made a run to the 7-Eleven 2 blocks away and come back with 4 bags of ice, which they were arranging around the base of the server racks with a kind of desperate creativity that only happens when someone's out of real options. It didn't help. Ice in bags against a wall of industrial heat is just ice becoming water faster than usual. By Wednesday night, the room was at 82% for it. I was home eating leftover chili and watching the Bears game. Thursday morning, Carl was in my doorway again at 8:30. This time, he didn't bother with small talk. Server room on 22 is at 84 for Birienhout. Their IT lead says 2 racks shut down overnight. They're running on maybe 40% capacity. Is the equipment I own functioning correctly? I asked. He blinked. The building systems? Yeah. Everything else in the building is fine. Then what you're describing is a service gap resulting from a lapse in contract status, I said. Not a malfunction. Carl sat down in the chair across from my desk without being invited. That told me how rattled he was. Carl's not a sit-down without asking kind of guy. Walter? Their lawyer called the building owner yesterday evening. There's talk about breach of habitable workspace. They're saying the building is failing to provide basic services. Pull the lease, I said. Addendum C, subsection 4. The base lease guarantees standard office temperature for human occupancy, 72 Befran-Howard. That floor is at 72 Befran-Howard in every non-server area. The supplemental cooling for high-density server equipment is a separate contracted service. It's listed as a technological amenity, not a base provision. I know that. Then their lawyer knows it too, or will in about 10 minutes once someone reads the document. Carl rubbed his face. They want to talk to you. Tell them I'm reviewing the account. I'll be in touch when the review is complete. He left. I turned back to the HVAC dashboard. Floor 22 server room. 84 ton Pier Befer and holding. The building's standard AC was doing its job. It just wasn't designed for what they were running in that room. I had a meeting that afternoon I'd been planning to push to the following week. I moved it up. Owen Driscoll. I'd known him for 15 years, back when he was running logistics out of a 2-room office in Bridgeport, and I was doing contract work for half the buildings on the south side. He'd built his company into something real: warehouse management software, distribution tracking, 60 employees and growing. They'd been trying to get proper infrastructure space in this building for 2 years. Every time a floor opened up with the right specs, Barrett Group had outbid them or locked in first. I texted him, "You around for coffee? Michigan Ave Diner, 3 o'clock. He replied in 4 minutes, already there. Owen was on his second cup when I walked in. He's a compact guy, mid-50s, keeps his hair short, has the handshake of someone who's been closing deals his whole life. He stood up when I came in. We didn't need to do much warm-up. 15 years means you get to skip the first 10 minutes. I set a folder on the table and ordered coffee. Floor 22, I said. Full infrastructure package. High-priority fiber trunk, dedicated chilled water loop, backup generator token, freight elevator priority. Available for immediate activation. Owen looked at the folder without touching it. I thought Barrett had another 5 years on that. The renewal was declined by their representative. He looked at me. He knows me well enough to know I'm not going to explain more than that. How immediate is immediate? He asked. I can reroute your fiber within 24 hours of a signed contract. Chilled water activation takes about 4 hours once the valve sequence is set. You'd be fully operational within 48 hours. And the freight elevator? We've got server racks sitting in a warehouse in Joliet. There's a slot opening up Friday morning, I said. 6 to 10 a.m. I can hold it for 24 hours. Owen picked up the folder. He opened it, read the first page, flipped to the rate schedule. He's not a man who performs thinking. When he's reading, he's reading. 5 years, he said. Market rate, plus a signing bonus for expedited activation. It's in there on page 3, he found it. Nodded, your CPA still Renee? Still Renee. Tell her I said hello. He picked up a pen from his jacket pocket. Where do I sign? We were done in 40 minutes. I drove back to the building with a signed contract worth $1.1 million over 5 years. I rerouted Owen's fiber allocation that evening. The cables ran physically through the conduit in the ceiling of floor 22 to reach the riser that served floor 14, where Owen's team was currently operating. Technically, the bandwidth Hank Barrett used to have was now humming 6 inches above his head on its way to someone who appreciated it. I went home, packed a bag, and left for Lake Michigan before 7 a.m. Friday. I have a spot up near Waukegan I've been going to since my late father showed it to me when I was 12 years old. A stretch of rocky shoreline away from the boat ramps and the weekend crowds. I brought the spinning rod, a folding chair, and a cooler with enough food for 3 days. I turned my building phone off before I left the city limits. I caught 4 wally over the weekend. Released 3 of them. Kept 1 for dinner Saturday night, cooked it over a camp stove with butter and Old Bay. Slept well both nights. Sunday evening I drove back into the city, sat in my truck in a parking lot off Sheridan Road, and turned the work phone back on. It took about 45 seconds to load the missed calls. 31 of them. Carl's number appeared 8 times, the 212 number, New York corporate, showed up 11 times. There were 2 voicemails from a name I didn't recognize, Alan something, identifying himself as general counsel for Barrett Group's parent company. His voice in the first message was controlled and professional. In the second message, left Saturday afternoon, it was neither of those things. I didn't call back. What I did check was the building dashboard app on my phone. I kept it read only on the personal device. I couldn't make changes from there, just monitor. Floor 22 server room, 87 Beery had. The rolling credential encryption had run its automatic update cycle at midnight Sunday, same as it did every 96 hours. The update pushed through the building network. Floor 22's network had been running degraded since Tuesday. The update to their tenant credentials had failed to sync. Their key cards would show expired as of 12 a.m. Monday. I set the phone on the passenger seat and drove home to get a few hours of sleep. I had an early morning. Monday, I was in the building lot at 8035. I had my thermos. I was wearing the same thing I wear every day, work pants, boots, a button-down shirt. I badge in, I do my job, I go home. The lobby, when I walked through the front doors, was not having a normal Monday morning. About 35 people from Barrett Group were backed up against the turnstiles. Swiping key cards. Red light. Swipe again. Red light. One guy was swiping the same card over and over, like the 10th try was going to be different. A woman in a blazer was on her phone, voice climbing. 2 guys in fleece vests, always the fleece vests with this company, were standing to the side looking at each other like they were waiting for someone else to figure it out. Clint Odom, head of building security, was behind the desk watching the whole thing with his arms crossed. Clint's been doing this job for 14 years. He's seen people have meltdowns over parking validation. This barely registered on his face. Hank Barrett was there too. He was easy to spot, same fleece vest, but now it had the particular wrinkle pattern of clothes that had been slept in. He hadn't shaved. He looked like a man who'd spent the weekend trying to hold a flooding basement together with his hands and hadn't quite managed it. He saw me the moment I came through the front door. I walked to the reader, tapped my access card. Green light. The turnstile opened. I walked through. You. Hank's voice came from somewhere behind me, tight and sharp. I heard him move and then heard Clint's voice, calm, firm, saying, "Sir, stay on that side of the barrier." I stopped, turned around. The lobby had gone quiet. People from 4 other companies were watching. A woman waiting for the elevator had stopped pretending to look at her phone. "I know you did this," Hank said. He was gripping the top of the barrier with both hands. His voice was the kind of loud that happens when someone's been awake too long and run out of filters. The badges, the internet, the AC, that's all you. Fix it. Right now, I have people who can't get to work. I looked at him for a moment. Then I looked at Clint, who gave me a small nod. Your credentials run on a rolling encryption cycle, I said, loud enough to carry across the lobby, but not so loud that I was performing, just explaining. Every 96 hours, the system pushes an update through the building network. Your floor's network didn't complete the sync. That's why the cards aren't reading. So, fix the network. The network issue is part of the ongoing service review for your floor's infrastructure account. I said, I have a 9 o'clock meeting. If you'd like to be part of that conversation, building management can bring you up. I turned and walked to the elevator. I heard him say something else, but the doors were already closing, and I was already thinking about the meeting ahead. The conference room on sub-level 2 has 4 walls, fluorescent lights, and no windows. I've held probably 200 meetings in that room over the years. Contract negotiations, vendor reviews, post-incident debriefs. Nobody comes into that room ready to perform. The lighting doesn't allow it. At 9:02, Carl came in and sat down in the corner. Then Pete Garland, Barrett Group's general counsel, expensive suit, the look of a man who'd been on calls since 6 a.m., then Don Barrett. I'd never met Don Barrett in person. I knew him by reputation, self-made, started in commercial real estate in his 30s, built Barrett Group into a mid-sized tech platform company over 25 years. He was 61, heavy-set, bald, with the kind of eyes that have seen enough bad deals to recognize one on sight. He came in, looked at the room, looked at me sitting alone on one side of the table. He pulled out the chair directly across from me and sat down without a word. Hank came in last. He sat at the far end, away from his father. He still hadn't shaved. Don put both hands flat on the table. Mr. Hale, he said, we're losing somewhere around $40,000 a day, probably more by now. My son made an error in judgment. He didn't know who you were. He turned and looked at Hank then. Just looked at him. Didn't say anything else. Hank stared at the table. I shouldn't have spoken to you the way I did, he said. The words were flat, prepared. I didn't realize you were the contractor. I let that sit for a second. What did you think I was? I asked. He looked up. I thought you were maintenance. And if I had been, I said, would that have made it all right? Nobody answered. Don's jaw tightened slightly. That was enough. I hear you, Mr. Barrett, I said, meaning the father. And I'll tell you the same thing I'd tell anyone in this situation. The apology is noted. But what your son ended Tuesday wasn't personal. It was contractual. And that part doesn't reset with an apology. I opened my folder and placed a single sheet on the table. That's the infrastructure agreement for floor 22, I said. The voided version. As of Thursday evening, the bandwidth allocation, supplemental cooling contract, and generator backup token for that floor were released to the open market. They've been contracted to another party. 5-year binding agreement. Pete Garland leaned forward, contracted to whom I can't share client details. But the contract is active, the traffic is live, and the cooling load has already been reassigned. Don looked at the sheet. He didn't touch it. Can it be undone? No. We'll pay a premium to buy it back. Whatever the other party is paying, we'll double. It's not available, I said, and I wouldn't break a signed contract for double. That's not how I do business, and I'd expect you understand that. Don sat back. He looked at his son again, just briefly. The way a man looks at something he's still calculating the true cost of. What do we have left, he said. Your base lease runs through 2028. 4 walls. A ceiling, standard office HVAC, basic utility access. Adequate for general office use. Not adequate for a server-dependent platform operation. So we can stay, Pete said carefully, but we can't operate. That's an accurate summary. Don nodded once. He wasn't a man who needed it said 3 times. Freight elevator, he said, for the move-out scheduled maintenance through Wednesday. There's a slot Thursday morning. 7 to 10. He looked at me. We both knew the maintenance was not a coincidence. He wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to confirm it. Thursday morning, he said. Thursday morning. He stood and buttoned his jacket, extended his hand across the table. I shook it. Firm, brief, no performance in it. Just 2 men finishing something. Hank didn't look up when his father walked out. The move-out took until the following week. Server racks came down in pieces, hand-trucked through the service corridor, because the freight window was tight and they had more equipment than they'd planned for. Word filtered back through Carl that Don had reassigned Hank to their Indianapolis satellite, a warehouse district location, real operational work, no innovation in the job title. I looked up the building out of mild curiosity. Standard commercial internet. 50 megabits area between 3 tenants. Owen's team moved on to floor 22 6 weeks later. They came in organized equipment manifests, filed 3 days in advance, union movers, proper dock scheduling. On move-in morning, someone from their office dropped off 24 donuts at the security desk for Clint and his team. Clint texted me a photo of the box. I didn't reply, but I appreciated it. About 3 months after they were settled, I was up on 22 doing a quarterly systems check. Owen was finishing a call at the window. When he hung up, he watched me run through the panel readings for a minute. "Building feels different than where we were," he said. "More solid, same building," I said. "Different management." He smiled at that. Then, "My nephew's starting here next month. Internship. Smart kid, but he's got that thing young guys sometimes have where they think knowing something for 2 years means they know everything." I kept my eyes on the temperature readout. 72 per spermia rate where it needed to be. "Send him down to sub-level 2 his first week," I said. "I'll show him how the building actually works." Owen laughed. I already told him the first thing he does is find Walter Hale and shake his hand. And if he ever gives you trouble, he answers to me. I closed the panel cover and picked up my kit. "He'll be fine," I said. "Most people just need to understand where the power actually comes from." I took the elevator back down to the basement. The hum of the building settled around me on the way, pumps running at the right pressure, fiber carrying clean traffic, temperature holding steady on every floor. 30 years of this work, and that sound still means something to me. It means everything is doing what it's supposed to do. I poured the last of the coffee from my thermos. Somewhere in Indianapolis, Hank Barrett was waiting on a PDF to load. In this business, the most dangerous words you can say to someone are, "I don't know who you are," because sometimes they're the only one in the room who knows exactly what happens next.